Does Peter's comments trigger a response from around the... Oh, now you, Jason.
Okay, had some feedback from some people just asking about how the Auckland Supercity is going to compare with Brisbane, which is one of the larger setups in Australia and has been going for quite some time.
Yes, thank you. Now, the Mayor of Brisbane was speaking here in Auckland, I think at the local government conference today. Were you there? Did you hear him? Well, what did he say?
He gave a very powerful presentation. He's an Aussie. And he's a really upfront, in-your-face, proud Brisbane citizen. And that's what he presented. Yeah. Brisbane as a city really on the move. He showcased what was happening with infrastructure, what was happening in terms of areas such as education, which is clearly a number one for them, what was happening in research and development, what was happening in terms of the economy, the scale of the city. It's about 1.2 million, but in a metropolitan region, which is closer to 2 million. So Brisbane doesn't actually govern the whole of the Brisbane metropolitan area. In terms of budget and assets, it's about the scale of Auckland, as it will be. He put a huge emphasis on their international relationships and the fact that the role of the city internationally is to drive opportunities for Brisbane's exporters. And he's making the point, we're in a world where other people, other cities expect the mayor to be there and they expect the mayor to matter. So he's really saying, look, this is what it's about, guys.
Fine, thank you. If I may now turn to Shane. Shane Jones is a Labour Party Member of Parliament, List MP from the far north, so great interest in representing Maori and Northland and the country as a whole, but very involved through the Select Committee in working on the Auckland bills. So a person who's taken a very keen interest in what's been going on. So Shane, your sense of progress to date?
Kia ora no tātou. Ngā mihi kia tātou katoa e hui nei roto I te wiki o te reo Māori, kia manawa nui tātou katoa. Peter, rest assured, I'm not here to be negative. We had our fights in Parliament, and for purposes of what I'll say this evening, I'll park that up, quite frankly, in Parliament. The Select Committee process was burdensome, but given the huge level of interest, that was to be expected, an enormous amount of reading and writing, etc. But given that we've inherited a structure and the philosophical differences about the moral underpinnings of the structure, etc., put that to the side for the moment. In my view, social democracy on one hand and economic efficiency on the other hand have been the two forces involved in this combat. I feel that one of the key imperatives behind the Royal Commission was, quite frankly, economic in character. I recall very vividly the disappointment and occasional howls of anguish coming from senior ministers about how difficult it was for central government on key infrastructure things to work with local government in Auckland. So I think that when we look at the structure, never overlook there's going to be a constituency who place accent on social democracy, and there'll be a constituency who want the trains to run on time, but more importantly, believe that too much social democracy has become too messy, and there's a need for efficiency. Now, number one, unless there is strong participation at the local level, I think you can expect the bureaucracy in the Supercity to grow even stronger than it currently is across our local government entities in Auckland. Secondly, unless the mayor, whoever he or she is, distills a very lucid vision and has the ability to take people with them, then it's difficult to see how the proposed spatial plan will be anything other than a protracted debate amongst the cluster of constituencies that make up Auckland as to how do we create social, economic, cultural, integrating forces of creativity. So, strong participation via the local committee, a very strong distillation from the civic leader, and equally a strong level of competence and advocacy from each of the 20 councillors. Now, I've often felt about the structure that if everyone focuses just on their particular ward, it may be difficult to create an overarching view which I think underlies a lot of the thinking about the Supercity. But people are people. They're going to respond to the local concerns, the anguish, and the sense of alienation, which bothers me immensely when I look at it from the Maori and Pacifica perspective, but particularly the Maori perspective. When you look at the youthful character of the people, the absence of a clear conduit for Maori participation to come into the super city, I can see that if we're not careful, we'll have groups that feel that they're locked out, and that will be very bad for the vision articulated by Peter McKinley, or indeed the assessment that the super city is going to be a dynamo that's going to grow 33% of the economy, represent 33% of the population. So to restate them, a strong overarching leadership role from the Mayor, strong local participation, but also good advocacy from each of the 20 members so that there is a clear mix of what it is that's going to make up the amalgam of what it means to be a bustling, creative, but different Auckland. And the only downside that I genuinely fear is that if the politicians are unable to come to terms with the new structure, the new dominion over Auckland will be enjoyed by the bureaucracy.
Thank you for those comments. And just picking up on two of them, if I may. First of all, on Maori representation.
Yes.
What do you reckon about the proposed structure that's in place there in terms of that, well short of actual seats on council?
Yep.
Do you think there is any, how do you think that'll work out, is the first point. And the second one is there was a very strong view from Peter Salmon and Bob Harvey and Sir Ron Carter last week that the question of Maori seats is still something that has to be played for. So although the government has said no at this stage, that as soon as the new council is up and running, that fight needs to be rejoined. What do you reckon?
Well, the fight isn't going away. There are two ways to address Maori issues in the super city. One would have been to put something akin to a principles of the Treaty of Waitangi reference in the actual statute. So irrespective of the ethnicity of the decision makers, the elected representatives, they are obliged to observe the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. Unfortunately, that's not regarded as either tolerable or positive, it would appear in the current political culture. And the option which we've promoted, which I'll continue to promote, is we should emulate the Maori seats that exist in Parliament. I'm not a fan of breaking it into seats based on what the Maori call mana whenua, or each tribe. I think that we've got a good system that's worked in the Bay of Plenty, we've got a reasonable system that's worked in Parliament, and there's no reason why we can't go back and replicate what the Longi government created in the Auckland Regional Authority back in the late 80s and early 90s, etc. Of the Maori committee, well, these committees will only be as effective as the attention paid to them by, number one, the Mayor, and number two, where they fit in the structure in terms of is the bureaucracy prepared to adequately fund it, but more importantly, are they obliged to follow what they want? So two things would have worked in my view: a statutory reference where Maori groups could have actually litigated to hold the super city decision makers to account on their statutory duties. In the absence of that, actual Maori representatives.
Right, thank you. Now, on the question of councillors, as to whether those 20 will be able to be good at representing their constituents, but also still play to the much bigger picture.